Hello and welcome to Inside Music, episode number 175. As always, I'm your host, James Shotwell, and it is great to be with you again. My guest this episode is none other than Karyn Crisis of Karyn Crisis' Gospel of the Witches. She's also a healer, a spiritualist, an author, and all around probably one of the most badass people we've ever had on the podcast. Karyn does a little bit of everything, which we're going to try to talk about during this episode. We have her for about 25-ish minutes, and we cover a lot of ground, but not nearly everything. So if you're listening to this now or at the end of the episode and you want to learn more about her, I highly recommend you head over to KarynCrisisHeals.com and just click on every tab at the top of the page, because every single one is something different that she does, and they're all very interesting. She's a just really interesting person, and I'm happy to have her on the show. We've been trying for a while, but the perfect opportunity arose recently because Gospel of the Witches, Karyn Crisis' band, is going to be releasing a brand new album titled Covenant on Halloween. And if you live in Italy, you get it a couple days early, which we touch on in this podcast. But for those of us in the States, Covenant comes out on Halloween, and it could not be a better time for this record because it's one of those dark, witchy, just crazy good metal records. And we've been listening to it here at Inside Music HQ for the last week or so, and we just can't get enough of it. And it's the kind of thing that you don't have enough of in the world today. There's no other artist or no other band that really is doing what Karyn Crisis is doing through music or really through any aspect of her life. And that is, again, why she's on this show. So when you're listening, you're going to have questions, I'm sure, and I encourage you to seek them out. But before we get to the podcast, we always have to cover a little bit of ground. First and foremost, I want to tell you that there might be a few small audio issues with this conversation. Not with Karyn herself necessarily. We connected over Skype, but as you may have noticed, we got a new audio setup here at HQ, and we're still figuring it out. Doing in-person interviews with this kit, very easy. Recording stuff online, also easy, but there is an added degree of difficulty that we did not really anticipate heading into this episode. So if I seem a little bit quieter in the mix, know that we're working on it and we will improve it in the near future, and we appreciate your patience. I also want to point out that this episode and probably the next 2 or 3 episodes of the show are all recorded a little bit earlier than when they're getting released. Traditionally, we record this show on Monday or Tuesday, release it on Wednesday, but we've had a lot of really great opportunities come up in recent weeks, so we kind of got a little bit of a back catalog ready to share with you. We have Karyn Crisis and the Gospel of the Witches this week. We have Jesse Lee from High Road Publicity in the future. We also have a conversation with the one and only rock band Cold, all of which are already in the books, recorded, edited, and ready for release. You're getting one today, one next week, and one after that, and who knows, there'll probably be some additional opportunities that come up. So for a little bit now, you're going to be hearing conversations that took place in the past. So if we reference something that it seems a couple of weeks old or something that's upcoming but has actually already happened, that's the reason for that. Now, with all those things aside, all those little announcements and details, let's get to the thing that you know I'm going to say, because this is the beginning of the podcast and it's what happens every single week. This episode of Inside Music and every episode of Inside Music is brought to you by Holix, the industry standard for music promotion. Now, what that means is that Holix works with record labels, publicists, and independent artists from all over the world to discreetly share new and unreleased music with fans and tastemakers. To learn how they do this and gain access to a free 30-day trial, I need you to visit Holix.com. That's HAULIX.com. And you should really give Holix a try. Chance the Rapper, Blink-182, Tool, Metallica, Slipknot, Killswitch Engage, and thousands of additional artists, including Karyn Crisis herself, trust Holix with their music promotion needs. And you can too. Sign up to Holix today and get a free trial. Once again, it's HAULIX.com. I also want to encourage you once again to check out our YouTube channel. It's called Music Biz, and we post every episode of the podcast, as well as educational tips and music news headlines. We go in depth about what's happening in the industry, your role in it, and how you can talk about it in conversation to make yourself seem cool and knowledgeable. So head over to YouTube and search Music Biz. That's Music B-I-Z or Music Biz 101, and you will find us. And I think that's everything I have. So one more reminder. Karyn Crisis' Gospel of the Witches will release their new album Covenant on Halloween. That's October 31st, 2019. They also have a release show in the Bay Area, so if you live up there, check it out. But for right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with the one, the only, Karyn Crisis.
always warm in the Bay Area.
I've always associated you with being a New York-based artist. Did you move out west?
Yeah, like when the millennium hit, the whole band moved, even though I travel a lot. I've been based out in the Bay Area.
Ah, okay. I saw the announcement of the release show being in the Bay Area, and I don't know why my brain was still stuck on you being in New York, but I was like, why are we doing a show in Bay Area? That all makes more sense now.
Yes, exactly.
Well, on that note, we do have you here for a reason to talk about this awesome new album that you have coming up called Covenant, and it was just announced, so I'm pretty excited that we could talk about it so soon.
Yay.
How long has this record been in the works? Are you somebody that's just always recording music, or was there like a set time when you're like, it's time to start the record?
Well, not long after the first one came out, and the band started playing a few live shows, Davide had already written compositions for the second album, but we were, I move a lot slower than he does as a musician. He's constantly got music flowing out of him, and so we thought, well, let's, try to do some touring and play shows and see where that goes. And then our plans got a bit derailed because I ended up going to live in Italy for a bit to do research on a book, and so that ended up taking a couple of years to process everything, get the book done, travel around, finish that up. So the songs have been written for a few years, and just this last, before this new year hit, before 2019, we started recording all of the parts for this actual album and getting it mixed and mastered with Jamie Kay again. So it's been kind of in the incubator for a while, and when it was time to have it all finished, it was time, and that's kind of how it works, beyond what our own personal goals may be.
Well, I actually am very envious of where you are in your career, and I think a lot of people are, because you seem to have built this whole world around your interests and your passions, and you're able to, at least to some extent, move at a pace that you enjoy rather than feeling like that constant pressure of like, I have to create all the time, every day, or I'll slip out of the ether of conversation. Like when you do something, people pay attention, and when you need time, people seem to respect that.
I never thought of it that way. My schedule is interesting, but I don't know if it's anything to be envied. I just learned that the way I work or the way things flow through me, I should say, creatively, is that I really have to go where the doors open. So, regardless of my own personal plans, when I feel the inspiration go here, go there, whether it's painting or music or writing a book, a lot of these things I don't plan and I don't see coming. But when the sort of doors open and the synchronicities occur and everything is supporting it so strongly, I've learned for myself in my slightly older age that if I go with that flow, then it's just pure magic. And everything really, not that there's not still struggles, but things flow in the right way. If I try to do things according to my own schedule, it never works well. There's a lot of suffering and tears, and me going, but why? Why does my life not look the way I think it should? So I just, when I started getting older into this, around the time that the gospel album came out, really, not that long ago, I realized, look, Karyn, the universe is speaking to you loudly and clearly. Like, do you want to go through the open doors, or do you want to fight against the brick walls? And I realized, it's kind of scary to go through the open doors because they're unknown and they change direction. And I really don't know what it's about until I step through that door usually. But then, the whole universe conspires to help things work out for me. And so that's pretty much the lesson I've learned. It's not so much about me taking my time to do things. I take time for silence. I take time to listen to the universe so that I'm clear about which doors I should go through and when. But it is, if you want to say about envying it, I do have to be ready to live out of a backpack and go where needed. I do have to be ready to, jump and go do really risky and bold things, even if maybe I want to stay home and be cozy. I have to be willing to hop in a plane and go to a different state or a different country if it calls. I really have to be, it's a way of learning to be really flexible and to trust, which of course takes guts, and it takes a little bit of learning how to be in that flow. As long as I do that, things go well. And if I don't do that, then I, bring everything back down to my limited knowledge and my limited abilities, and things get messy.
Was there a defining, I know you referenced around the time gospel came out, was there a defining moment or experience in your life where you kind of, I guess, fell into this understanding or reached this understanding where you're like, I need to start living life this way? Because I know that you're a very spiritual person. I feel like from everything I know about you and your art that you are, like you just said yourself, you're very good at listening to yourself and to the universe around you. What were the motivating factors that kind of brought you to this state that you're in today?
Well, I would say that I've always lived my life in this way, in maybe just not as boldly. When I joined the band Crisis, I didn't really know what was going to come of that. When I moved to New York City, away from everything I knew, I didn't know what was going to come of that. I've always felt driven, and I always trusted that voice. But it really wasn't around the time that the gospel album was being recorded and crowdfunded and came out that I finally had to surrender because I had all these plans set up for myself a couple of years before that and around that time, and I just realized my planning is not going according to plan. For example, I'd started painting a lot in those years before the album came out again, and I thought, oh, great. I'm gonna finally be able to make a career out of my painting. I was getting gallery shows and things were happening. But then it was like as soon as those doors opened and my painting skills excelled beyond my wildest dreams, I still, and they did that through meditation, not because I am a skilled painter at all. I really don't consider myself an artist. But I started trying to make these solid plans off of the magic that was happening instead of just letting the magic be the magic. And that didn't work out, of course. No painting career happened. In fact, no one bought my paintings for a couple of years, and then they all sold within a couple of weeks, years worth of paintings. And this was around the time where the universe was trying to show me this, just enjoy things for what they are. Enjoy the flow and be in the present moment. Go deeply into these moments. Don't try to own them. Don't try to hold on to them. Everything is ever changing. And it really was around the time that the gospel album came out that I realized this, because as I mentioned, I had this personal passion to return to Italy again. At the same time, Davide and I were trying to make plans to tour, even though they weren't working out with schedules. And we were like, are we reading the signs wrong? And I realized, yeah, I am reading the signs wrong. I have to really go with the flow. And when I go, it was just being demonstrated to me, we could say. That was the time where everything was coming to a pinnacle because I had kept trying to make plans. Okay, let's take this path and just keep doing it like most people do. They find their career passion and they keep traveling down that path. But the reality is for a lot of us, our lives are not like that. They go left and right and zigzag and squiggly, and maybe they come around in a circle again and then they spiral. And that's also a really valid way of living, but I didn't realize it until then. And at that time period, yes, I was also starting to train as a medium and realize what to call myself and the things that I've been sort of surviving, the skills that I've been surviving by for years that are less tangible, than the kind of things that go on a resume. And I was learning to judge them and say, okay, well, people did used to live a different way, by listening to the trees and the air and their intuition more. Maybe that's what the universe is trying to tell me. And then boom, it's like everything opened up more deeply and became more clear when I sort of surrendered to that idea.
You make it sound so simple.
Oh, yeah, and it's really not.
I can imagine.
But, it's really not. Like I said, I have to take the time for myself to listen and go where things flow, which is always different from what you have in mind. I have in mind. So it's definitely, a way of living that makes you say, okay, I'm working in partnership with something that's paying attention to me, whether you want to call that source or God or goddess. I don't want to impose my beliefs on anyone, but there is a way to live realizing something's listening to me. So, and that's also a process. It's all a process. I try to explain it to people there's natural athletes out there, and sometimes a natural athlete, gets picked for the draft of basketball or whatever. And their natural abilities have to be honed a little bit because they have to learn to maybe play with other people or have a stronger endurance. Maybe they have to eat vitamins and foods they never knew about. and they have to learn how to exercise different muscle groups that they maybe didn't think existed. Life becomes different along a similar line. And that's kind of what like listening to the universe is about. It's about learning some new skills, how to flex some new muscles, how to send and receive information. And, so it's a wild ride, but it can also be very interesting.
Well, it certainly has been interesting for you, and I know we're trying to cover a ton of ground here, so I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit. You mentioned going to Italy in the answer you just gave, and it's something that's always fascinated me about you. Sorry, especially as I'm looking over the song titles to the new record, I admittedly had to Google a few of them because I was a little lost and my Italian's not too good. But your love of Italian and Italian history comes through, and obviously your book, Italy's Witches and Medicine Women. So it all kind of seems like it all ties together. What is it about? I guess what drew you to Italy? Like, where does you have such a clear passion for it and its rich history? Like, can you give me a little insight into that?
Well, I think I'm still learning about all that myself. I mean, yes, I've been interested in Italian art, almost obsessed with it since I was a child, but it wasn't until I was on my own in 1995, at the very end, where I thought maybe I wanted to make music again, after I left Crisis, where I found myself in Italy being connected with Davide Tiso, and we had sort of a musical journey together, a spiritual journey together. And other things started happening, like my connection to Italy became deeper on a historical and a spiritual level, and I kept feeling called to go back there. And every time I'm called to go back and stay there, all these people open their homes to me and their healing traditions. And it wasn't, again, really a choice for me. Like, doors opened and I walked through the open doors, and then doors keep opening. So it's really like a universe-guided or a spirit-guided connection there. I mean, yes, Davide is Italian, like born in Italy, grown up in Italy. The drummer for the New Covenant album also is someone that I know from Italy, born in Italy, grew up in Italy. And so there's absolutely an Italian connection coming through the music with some of the language being spoken, and a lot of things that I learned about magic and rural cures there on my own personal work has bled into the music. So I think, I'm part of a story that's being reclaimed and told for whatever reasons, maybe because it's about to disappear or it never had a voice before. And, again, it wasn't a choice of mine, but so many doors opened, I felt like I had to honor the things that people were teaching and telling me in Italy that I was allowed to share. And then, of course, naturally in the music, having a band of Italian people, there's an embracing of things that we are commonly connected to about Italian history or the spiritual practices that we have.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm still learning I'm learning my own place in it, but I don't really know if it's about me so much. It's really about me being willing to be a voice for some things that want to be spoken about.
Well, I'm happy that you're doing it either way.
Thank you.
I want to touch on a couple of things. I got like another 10 minutes with you. So the album comes out in October on the 25th, and you guys do have this release show coming up in the Bay Area. Do you have other shows on the horizon? Talking a little bit more traditional music industry now. What else can we expect from you in the weeks and months to come?
Well, we shall see. I mean, I know we're working on some other Bay Area shows, and yeah, for people who are interested. The album and the CD and the digital is coming out on oral music out of Europe, but we have a really cool deal where we are actually the band is able to press our own vinyls or whatever it is that we want to do in our own, so we can do our own special limited edition or deal with people directly, which is what we're doing. So the band is, pre-selling a special fluorescent vinyl, album package. Now there's going to be other handmade things so that we can we really like the idea of having a personal connection to people who listen to our music, which you lose when you work with a label. So we're working with a label who's cool with that. So yes, in Europe, or of course from America, you can buy from Europe. All that music is available on the 25th. From us directly, it's available on the 31st. We just got our live band together, so I'm not sure what all the plans were. Again, we all want to play. We all are working on things, but we'll see what happens. I really have to say that I really hate that question of like, what is your future plans? I don't hate it because it's not a valid question. I just can't tell you. We'll see what the universe agrees with, or what we're able to make happen. But playing live is something we definitely want to do, whether that will be a tour or just special select shows. We all really want the shows to count. We really want the chemistry to be right, the atmosphere to be wonderful, no wasted effort, which is also my policy with art or writing, and everything that I do. So we'll see where that takes us. But we do have a lot of people saying, please play a show where I live. And of course we really want to do that, because that personal connection during live shows is a wonderful magic. The best thing I can say is keep an eye on gospelofthewitches.com and keep an eye on our Gospel of the Witches on Instagram, for updates and developments. And we'll do our best to work with the flow and where that support is.
Well, it's a little bit of a selfish question, admittedly, because in our household, we've been debating whether or not to fly from the Midwest out to the Bay Area. So we're like, we'll just slip it in and figure out whether or not we have to start looking at flights. It's cool. It's fine. We're willing to do so. It's fine.
You're serious? That's amazing.
Of course.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm honored.
This is a conversation that we've been having for a while, because it's been a little bit since the last record came out. So it's always been like, all right, when she announces something new, we're on it. Like, we're whatever it is, we're ready for the next thing that comes along.
That's amazing.
Well, I don't feel like we're in a limited crowd in that. I feel like most of the people that I see interacting with you and all of the things you do, it seems like you have this very devoted fan base, and it's interesting to me.
Yes.
Like, your time management skills are something that I admire the most, because I'm like, how does she juggle all these plates or keep all these plates spinning? I don't even have the right metaphor, but it's impressive, and it's just something I love. Like, I struggle so hard to keep this show going and like my regular work, and then chase passion projects. And I see that you have like every tab on your website. If someone goes to KarynCrisisHeals.com, like every tab is a different like thing that you do. And it's like, how does she manage? It's amazing.
Thank you. Well, I admire people who do things like you do. Like, thank you for doing the show and holding down the fort in the way that you do. I mean,
and, the reason I ask you is because I've been getting more and more interested in mindfulness myself, and especially the role of mindfulness in the lives of various musicians, and how they came to it and how they use it in their lives. And you're one of the few that I know that actively seems to reach out to other people with a message of mindfulness, or trying to get them to take an interest in it in one way or another. And I don't know, it's something that very interests me about just your outreach to the world. It's something that seems to always be at the focus of everything you do.
Well, thank you. I am naturally a very introverted person, and I've been, begging the universe to let me just go live in a cave for at least a decade. But the universe is like, no, we've got other plans. So, go out there, learn, share, connect. It's really a beautiful thing. The last couple of years I've traveled a lot, like teaching and working with people, and the teaching teaches me too. It's not a one-way thing. So I really love the back and forth connection and meeting people and seeing them through the eyes of the universe, sometimes, which is really great. And it's just another form of creativity, you could say.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I know that you said your client is a little bit late today, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I am very excited for the world to hear Covenant. I'm sure maybe not as excited as you. But it has to be exciting to be like at the cusp of this next phase, because you spent all this time working on the record, and now you're in that sweet spot where it's like it's done, but the world hasn't had a chance to consume it yet, and you're just holding on to it.
Yeah. And we are having such a great time in rehearsals for the live show, so that's a sweet spot too.
Are you going to release any songs or singles in the upcoming weeks that maybe people should be on the lookout for?
Absolutely. There is going to be, I know that the European label is going to be releasing a song closer to the release date, because they have some plans there. And we're going to be releasing more like little mini video chats about what's happening with the band and what to expect, and some interesting things there too. So there's definitely going to be a lot more stuff coming through. I just don't know exactly when yet.
That's fine. It's perfectly fine. People can find you online. You are all over the place. And the one thing we didn't talk about was too specifically was your art, but I do encourage anyone listening to check it out. We have your self-portrait in our apartment as well as the channeling image. So we have both of those. Yes, I might send you a photo when we're off this. We have when you walk in the door, it's the first thing you see in our apartment are these two images.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
We actually just ordered the self-portrait. It was damaged, and you were kind enough to send the channeling along with a replacement of the self-portrait. So they are matted and framed in our home, and I encourage others to do the same because you have a very unique style that is just great.
Oh, thank you so much. You're amazing. Thanks so much for your support. I really appreciate it. I'm very honored.
No problem. And hopefully, if it all works out in the universe, we might make our way to the Bay Area for Halloween. So hopefully we can
well,
see
you
the
let me
show
know.
live. I absolutely will. I mean, if we're coming all the way out there, I'm definitely going to reach out and be like, hey, we're here. And maybe we can do this again in person or something.
Of course.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. That would be fun. So I look forward to that. And if not, then, well, down the line.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Best wishes. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.